Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Hania English podcast. I'm Hania, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. Whether you're just starting out or you've been learning English for a while, today's conversation is crafted to feel like a friendly chat with someone who truly understands your journey. Imagine we're sitting together over a warm cup of tea, discussing the ups and downs of learning English, sharing stories, and even having a few laughs along the way. I truly believe that learning English is about more than just grammar rules and vocabulary lists. It's about experiencing the language in its natural flow. It's about connecting with people, feeling the emotions behind every sentence, and most importantly, enjoying the process. Today, I'm thrilled to have my friend Alex with me. Alex has not only mastered many of the challenges of learning English, but also has some fun, practical tips to share.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex. I'm really happy to be here with Hania and all of you today. You know, my journey with English hasn't been without its funny moments and challenges, but each step has made me a better speaker. Today, we're going to share some real-life examples and even do a little role play to demonstrate how these tips can work in everyday conversations. So, let's dive right in.
Let's start by talking about the importance of listening. I remember when I first began learning English, I would listen to podcasts and music, trying to catch every word. Over time, I realized that listening isn't just about understanding words. It's about understanding feelings, tones, and even cultural nuances. For example, have you ever heard the phrase, feeling under the weather? I first encountered it when I was a bit sick, and my friend said it casually. It wasn't literal at all, but a way of saying she wasn't feeling well.
That's a great example, Hania. Feeling under the weather really shows how English uses imagery to express ideas. I use it often. Just last week, I said it to describe a day when I wasn't at my best. It made me realize that sometimes understanding such phrases can add a whole new dimension to your conversations.
Exactly, Alex. And speaking of phrases, let's pause for a moment. Natural learning break. Let's pause here for a moment. Alex, what do you think our listeners should try to remember from what we just discussed?
Well, I think it's important for our listeners to remember that learning phrases like feeling under the weather isn't just about memorization. It's about understanding how native speakers express emotions and ideas in everyday conversation. The more you listen and engage, the more natural these expressions will feel.
That's a wonderful takeaway. Now let's talk about common mistakes that many English learners face. One of the mistakes I used to struggle with was mixing up verb tenses. I remember a time when I said, I go yesterday instead of I went yesterday. It was a simple error, but it taught me a lot about the importance of context and timing in our conversations.
I've been there too, Hania. It's easy to get tangled up in the grammar rules. One of the fun ways I overcame this was by turning these mistakes into learning moments. I even recorded myself practicing sentences. Later, when I listened back, I could clearly see where I went wrong and how I could fix it. Mistakes, after all, are just stepping stones to better fluency.
That's a great approach, Alex. Now let's do a little conversational practice right here for our listeners. Conversational practice moment. Alex, shall we demonstrate this for our listeners?
Absolutely. Imagine we're at a park. I might say, I walked to the park yesterday. And you could reply, that sounds fun, Alex. What did you do there?
Exactly, Alex. By practicing such simple exchanges, you can gradually build up your confidence and accuracy. And remember, even if you make a mistake, it's perfectly okay. Every error is a learning opportunity.
Speaking of confidence, let's integrate another tip into our conversation. I often remind myself of a funny incident from my early days of learning English. This reminds me of something funny that happened to me last week. I was at a coffee shop trying to order my favorite drink, and I accidentally said, I need a cup of surprise instead of a cup of coffee. The barista and I shared a good laugh, and it became a memorable moment.
Oh, do share more, Alex. These real-life examples are so helpful. Not only do they make the learning process enjoyable, but they also show us that even native speakers appreciate a little humor when mistakes happen.
Absolutely. And speaking of the coffee shop, let's try a little role play right now.
Imagine we're at a cozy coffee shop. Alex, as a customer.
Hi there. Can I have a large cappuccino, please?
Of course. Would you like a little extra foam on that today?
Yes, please. I love it when it's extra foamy.
Great choice. Enjoy your cappuccino and don't forget to have a great day.
That was fun, wasn't it? By practicing these role-play scenarios, you can get a better feel for how everyday conversations flow naturally.
I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as we did. Now, before we move on to our next topic, here's a little challenge for our listeners. Natural challenge for listeners. Before we continue, why don't we give our listeners something to think about? Try using the phrase, feeling under the weather, or any other new expression you learned today in your daily conversations this week. It could be with a friend, a family member, or even while talking to yourself in the mirror. Notice how it feels to incorporate a new phrase naturally into your conversation.
That's a fun challenge, Hania, and it really helps to build the habit of using English actively throughout your day. Speaking of daily habits, let's touch on another key area: using English in your routine. I've found that narrating your daily activities in English can be a game changer.
Absolutely, Alex. For example, every morning I describe my routine out loud. I say things like, I wake up, brush my teeth, and make my breakfast. Over time, this simple practice has helped me think in English without having to translate everything in my head. It's a natural and effective way to improve fluency.
And let's not forget about the importance of cultural context. You know, Hania, in my country, we have different expressions for everyday situations. In my country, when we greet each other, it's common to ask, "How's the weather?" Even if we're not literally talking about the weather. It's a way to check in on each other.
Really? That's fascinating. In other places, people might simply say, "How are you?" But understanding these cultural nuances can enrich your learning experience. It reminds you that language is deeply intertwined with culture, and every expression carries a piece of that heritage.
That's right, Hania. And if at any point something we say feels too complex, feel free to pause and rewind our podcast. Remember, this is a journey, and it's important to take it at your own pace.
Alex, could you repeat that in simpler words? I think some of our listeners might want to hear it differently.
Of course. In simple terms, what I'm saying is, every time you use English in real-life situations, you learn more naturally. It's all about practice and enjoying the process.
That's perfect, Alex. Simple explanations like these can help everyone understand and feel more confident.
Now, let's dive back into our conversation by talking about a common challenge many learners face: the fear of making mistakes. I know I used to be really self-conscious about speaking, worrying that every mistake would be judged. But with time, I learned that mistakes are just part of the process.
I completely agree, Alex. I once felt so nervous about speaking in front of others that I would avoid conversations altogether. But then I realized that each mistake is just a stepping stone towards improvement. One tip I'd like to share is to laugh at your mistakes. It sounds odd, but humor is a powerful tool. When you find the funny side of a mistake, it becomes less intimidating and more of a learning experience.
That's such a healthy mindset, Hania. I remember a time when I mixed up my words during a presentation, and instead of panicking, I made a joke about it. The audience laughed, and it instantly turned into a supportive moment. That experience taught me that being relaxed and lighthearted about errors can boost your confidence immensely.
Speaking of being relaxed, let's take another moment for a natural learning break. Let's pause here for a moment. Alex, what's one key piece of advice you think our listeners should remember about embracing mistakes?
I'd say, always view mistakes as opportunities. They're not failures, but chances to learn something new.
Exactly. And with that in mind, let's explore another exciting aspect of language learning: vocabulary integration through storytelling.
Oh, I love storytelling. For instance, the other day, I was telling a friend about my weekend plans, and I used the phrase "on cloud nine" to describe how happy I was. He was curious, and we ended up discussing various idioms that express emotions. It's these little stories that stick with you and make vocabulary come alive.
That's such a great example, Alex. And speaking of idioms, here's another natural vocabulary integration. I recently came across the phrase, "a blessing in disguise." It really resonated with me when I learned that sometimes challenges can lead to unexpected positive outcomes. Have you ever experienced something like that?
Absolutely, Hania. I once lost a job that I thought was my dream, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. That setback forced me to explore new opportunities and learn skills I wouldn't have otherwise. It's amazing how language reflects life's twists and turns.
It truly is. And as we share these stories, remember that every phrase and idiom has its own backstory, much like the people who use them. Now, let's try another role-play scenario to show how you might naturally integrate these expressions into conversation. Natural role-play integration. Imagine we're at a family gathering.
Hania, I heard you saying you lost your job last month. How did that go?
Well, it was tough at first, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I learned so much and ended up finding an even better opportunity.
That's a perfect example of how you can discuss personal experiences using idioms. It makes the conversation more relatable and expressive.
Before we wrap up today's episode, I'd like to give you all one last piece of advice. Incorporate what you learn into your everyday life. Whether it's narrating your actions, practicing a dialogue, or simply pausing to reflect on a phrase, every little step counts. I challenge you to pick one new phrase or idiom from today's conversation and use it in a conversation with a friend or even in your thoughts throughout the day.
That's right, Hania. And remember, practice makes progress. Don't worry about being perfect. Focus on being consistent and enjoying the learning process. With every conversation, you're building a bridge to fluency and a deeper understanding of the language and its culture.
To add one more fun twist to our discussion, let's share a quick cultural insight. In some parts of the world, people greet each other with a kiss on the cheek, while in other places, a firm handshake is the norm. These small differences in communication can lead to fascinating discussions about culture and language. Alex, have you noticed any interesting cultural differences in your travels or interactions?
Definitely, Hania. I once attended a language exchange event where people from different countries shared how they greet their elders. Some cultures value a respectful nod, while others might use a warm hug. It was a reminder that language is not just words, but also the traditions and gestures that carry meaning.
Isn't that intriguing? These cultural nuances add a rich layer to learning English, reminding us that the language evolves differently in different parts of the world. And it's a perfect conversation starter when you meet someone from another country.
Before we say goodbye, let's do one more casual comprehension check, just to wrap things up. As we come to the close of our episode, I want to encourage all of you to take what we've discussed today and apply it. Whether it's through role-playing, narrating your day, or simply reflecting on a phrase, each practice session brings you one step closer to fluency.
Thank you, Alex. And thank you to all our listeners for being a part of today's conversation. Your journey to learning English is uniquely yours, filled with challenges, funny moments, and small victories. Remember, every time you speak, listen, or even make a mistake, you are growing. We're here cheering you on every step of the way.
Before we sign off, Here's one more fun bonus tip. Try recording a short video or audio clip of yourself using a new idiom or phrase. Listen back to it and notice how natural it sounds after a few tries. It's a great way to monitor your progress and celebrate your growth.
I love that idea, Alex. Recording your progress not only builds confidence, but also helps you see how far you've come. And as always, we'd love to hear your stories and experiences. Feel free to share them in the comments or on our social media. Your feedback and stories truly inspire us.
Absolutely, Hania. And if you have any questions or need further clarification on anything we discussed today, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to support you, just like a friend who's always ready to lend an ear.
So to wrap up our session, I want to leave you with this final thought. Learning English is not a race, but a journey filled with unexpected turns, delightful surprises, and endless opportunities to connect with others. Every phrase you learn, every mistake you make, and every conversation you have is a step toward becoming more confident and fluent.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, keep practicing, keep laughing, and most importantly, keep speaking. Whether you're narrating your daily routine or engaging in a fun role play, every bit of practice is a win.
And as a parting challenge, try using one new expression from today's episode in your daily conversation. See how it feels and share your experience with us. We'd love to know how these small moments of practice make a difference in your English journey.
Until next time, take care, stay curious, and enjoy every step of your learning adventure. We believe in you, and we're excited to hear all about your progress. Have a wonderful day.
Goodbye for now, everyone. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. Remember, every word, every phrase, and every story you share brings you closer to mastering English. See you in our next episode, and happy learning. As we sign off, think back on the natural moments we shared today, the pauses to reflect, the role-play scenarios, and the little challenges we set for you. Each of these elements is designed to make your journey not only educational, but also deeply enjoyable. Your progress is our progress, and together, we'll keep moving forward, one conversation at a time.